Welcome back to another video of Code the Globe. So this video is all about messing around with natural numbers. The basic scenario is a number input. So let's say it's 10. So if we put it would be the first 10 natural numbers and finding the number of odd, even, the set of the first 10 natural numbers. Later in this video, the natural numbers will be denoted as n. Okay, so I will be using the range function and the for loop to achieve this scenario. Let's talk about the range function in brief right now. So denotion of the range function is range and the two curly brackets, the two simple brackets. So in this range, it could either take one parameter or two parameters. Range is like a command to list out all the numbers from one specific place to another. It's more like the numbers in between, except it would print out the first parameter but not the last one. So these parameters will be entered inside these simple brackets. So and these parameters are separated by a comma. So let's say that we need to print out numbers from 5 to 6, no 5 to 8. Okay, so 5 to 8. We need to So right now it's gonna print out 5, 6, and 7. So there you go. That's 5, 6, and 7. Okay, so natural numbers. Natural numbers are the numbers starting from 1 and not 0. The numbers starting from 0 are called whole numbers. So for our scenario, we need to use a starting point as 1 and not 0. So the starting point could be anything and the ending point could be anything. Those are called the parameters. So let's say 1 to 9. Now if we work this out, we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So notice one thing. The second parameter or the ending point is not printed out as I said earlier. So if the input says 10 and we need the first 10 natural numbers, how are you going to achieve this? If you say print it's just gonna print out until 9 but not 10 unless unless you say print range 1 and 11. So now you get the first 10 natural numbers. So notice this. What is the second parameter? Second parameter is one number more than our input number, which is 10. So for our basic scenario, we say print range 1 and the number plus 1. Okay, so in order for this to work, the input number should be an integer. It cannot be a string. So when starting the program, we need to first remember to convert the input number, or you can change the variable name. It could be anything. It's not just the input number. I'm just using that as an example for you guys to understand better. So this input number should be an integer. Okay, getting back, don't care about the error because we haven't described what the input number is and we don't know whether that's a string or I don't know what's it taking it as. Okay, so if you say range 10, what's it gonna say? It started printing out from 0. So when you don't have two parameters, when you just have one parameter, it's gonna take the first parameter or the starting point as 0 and the ending point as the second parameter, which will not be printed either. Okay, so we got the first line of our code. Let me just open a new Python shell. got the we got the Python shell saved. So let's say, let's just call it input number to make it easier. Input number equals, so as I say, this should be integer, so remember that. Then input, and then here goes the message you want it to be. Denote it as n. Okay, so now if we run this, it's just gonna be storing it. So unless I print the input number, it doesn't exactly, we don't exactly know what it's taking it as. So let's say input 7. So yeah, it's whatever we type here, it's gonna save that input inside a variable named input number, and when we type input number, it's just gonna print out the variable stored in input number, and this variable is denoted as integer because we want it to be in integer and not in any other form. That's important over here. Okay, so now we got the first part set up. Then now we'll move on to the for loop. Okay. So the input number is fine. That's working perfect. So we need to check for every number in the given list and apply the condition we want. It's like every number in the set, and this sentence would be it's like every number in the set, and this sentence with a bit of modifications would become the first statement in our code. For every number in this set, we need to change every number to a variable name we want it to be, except input number, because that's already we've already used it. And this set should be changed to be the range we are wanting to define it. So the Python sentence will be for n in range 1 and input number plus 1. So I'm just taking this as n because have already denoted the number of integers as n. So it would just be convenient. So, and don't forget the colon here. This colon is very important. The colon represents what we want to do with the each number in all the text. After the colon will be indented. So this indentation in Python is very crucial. Okay, so for n in range 1 and input number, now we're going to start the if-else loop. If n modulo 2 is 0. Again, don't forget the colon. So what does this modulo represent here? First of all, it's not called a percentage. It's called a modulo. If we say 5 modulo 2, it would print out 1. So let me say 5 modulo 2. It's going to print out 1. 5 divided by 2 is not possible. And if we divide, we get the quotient as 2 and the remainder 1. So this modulo just extracts the remainder from the division. So how are we going to use this in the code? For all the even numbers, when the number is divided by 2, the remainder should be 0 because all the multiples of 2 are even numbers, and all the odd numbers when divided by 2 will have a remainder of 1 and only 1. So let's so now we got the use of modulo, and let's move on to the if-else function. So I said if n modulo 2, so n here is every number in the 1 and the input number. So if it's 10, then 1 and 11, so it's going to be 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. So n, it's going to change the value of n every time and check for this operation. So it's going to, so as I said, it's going to change the value of n every time and check for this operation over here. So the value of n is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 and 10. So it's going to be 1 modulo 2, 2 modulo 2, 3 modulo 2, 4 modulo 2, 5 modulo 2, etc. So it's gonna change the value of n, and it's gonna check for the remainder 0. If it's 0, let's say even equals even plus 1. So I forgot to do one thing over here. Let's say even equals 0 or equals 0. So this over here is called a Boolean operator. It's not neither a string nor an integer. It's just a Boolean operator. So if you want it to be integer, you need to type integer. If you want it to be string, just the apostrophe would be good. Okay, so that's a Boolean operator over there. And why I did this? Because after this if loop checking this condition over here, and if that condition is true, it's gonna change the value of even by 1. Get it? It's even, then the count for even numbers is gonna be increased by 1. And if it's odd, let's just say else odd equals odd plus 1. So if it's odd, if this condition is not true, it's gonna jump right to else and say odd equals odd plus 1. So the value of odd is gonna be increased by 1. And if you don't want to use else, like using else in this scenario is much easier, and like I would prefer it. But if you don't want to use else, you could do elif n modulo 2 is 1 odd equals odd plus 1. Okay, you could do that, and you don't need to you don't need to have another else to close this if loop. You could just leave it as it is. But I would not prefer doing that, because elif is when you have more than two options. Like over here it's just 1 or 0. It's like on and off, so it's much easier. So else odd equals odd plus 1. Okay, so we got the number of even numbers and odd numbers right. So now it's time for the sum of natural numbers. So for the sum of natural numbers, there's a mathematical formula which I'm going to use to make my life simpler. This mathematical formula, let me just write it down on the notepad. It's like number of natural numbers times number of natural numbers plus 1 whole thing over 2. So that's the mathematical formula, and let me just insert it right here. Let me say sum of numbers is equal, so like over here the sum of the number of natural numbers, like denoted right here, it's the input number, because that's the number of natural numbers we wanted. So input number times input number plus 1 over 2. So in this case, like over here and right here, we need the input number to be integer, and that was the reason we kept integer right here. It makes it easier. So we're all done, we're all set with that. The only thing left is to print them out. So let me say print the number of even numbers is numbers it's going to be even, then print the number of odd numbers, it's just going to be odd, then print the sum of the numbers is going to be sum of numbers. Sum of numbers. My typing's pretty bad today. Sorry. Let me just test this out. So enter the number of natural numbers, let's say 53. So the number of even numbers 26, number of odd numbers 27, the sum of natural numbers 1413. So to double check, let me just insert a smaller number, which is like, let me just insert 10. So the number of even numbers 5, number of odd numbers 5, sum 55. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. They're even, they're 5. 1, 3, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. They're odd and the count is 5. So for this sum, let me just use a calculator. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6. So that's 55. That's accurate. That's perfect. So one thing, if you notice over here, it's just this code is just running once, and after it's running once, it's just closing it. If you want to run that again, after you're done, you need to press run again, run module. So yeah, that makes it bad. So we could do one thing over here. Let's say, let's define this whole thing as code, and then we need to indent it. Let's do the indentation part afterwards. Let's say answer. We're asking them a question if they want this to be repeated or not. Repeat. I'm gonna say okay, and then if answer. So I'm gonna use the two equal to symbols right here because I'm using a string and it's easier and comfortable with it. I'll say code, else anything except the uppercase Y would just quit. Okay, now it comes the indentation. Without indentation, we're not defining this as code, and without that it wouldn't work. So now to keep this in a loop, let's say code. Let me just run it right now. Invalid syntax. How? Never mind. I don't need a colon right there. No. Say. Yep. Should work. Okay. Enter the number of natural numbers. 42. 21 even numbers, 21 odd numbers. Sum is 903. Repeat. Sure, why not? Enter the natural numbers. 762. 381 even, 381 odd, 290,703, 290,703. That's perfect. So let me type n. It's gonna say your program is still running. Do you want to kill it? Sure. I mean, okay. So we're all done with the code. We're all set. Here are the things which we learned about today. Using the range function, using for loop for some special occasions, using the basic if, else, and elif, working with the modulo operation. So those were the 4 new things we learned today, and hope you liked it. Hope you learned something new. Stay tuned to CodeTheGlobe for more such videos.